Welcome, everybody, to the Week 11 Waiver Wire episode. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. We'll talk about who to pick up, and we'll also recap last night's game. I think when I first was watching the game, I was like, man, this game stinks, right? But the more I thought about it, I realized that game was actually pretty awful. Welcome, everybody. No, actually, I think it was pretty cool to see two defenses play that well. I will give them credit, but not what we wanted for fantasy. Not a good way. Honestly, other than the 1 o'clock games, this was just an awful week of football.
I mean, you know why?
Why? Oh,
no Bengals, no Cowboys.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, every prime time or marquee matchup just wasn't good. Anyway, good morning, fellas. How we doing?
Wonderful.
Yeah. Week 11, baby. Let's go. Fantasy playoffs are around the corner.
They really are. Man, it's creeping up. All right. Let's get our top 3 waiver wire priority. By the way, in case you don't know, in the FFT Open, if you're in the FFT Open, the playoffs start pretty soon. It's weeks 14 and 15 in your individual divisions. And then 16 and 17 are for the teams that win their divisions. But we're coming up. The top 4 teams make it. So you better make your late season push now. Top 3 waiver wire priorities for week 11. Jamie.
No, I really haven't thought about this because you didn't send us the text, or you didn't.
We're not live. I don't know why we didn't. That's crazy. It didn't go live.
Oh,
okay. That amazing intro was wasted.
It was a good intro. Damn it.
It was very good. I'm like, where are the viewers? Where are the viewers?
Oh man.
I don't think I can do it again.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do something else. It's gone.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, restart.
The Thomas timeout deserved to be on the air.
Timeout. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. I think we're going to do this show twice today. We're so excited about it. This is our waiver wire show. We were on the air for about 3 minutes, and then we realized we actually weren't on the air. So I had this great intro, and I can't do it again. But
I think people actually saw the last one.
Oh, wow. They already saw it. They already saw it live.
Wait, hold on.
But
we were or we weren't on the air?
We were, but I can see the count.
The Thomas timeout. Everybody saw it.
Where it says like how much time is on the episode. And it's we're a minute in. This is so weird. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. All right, if you're listening, the people on YouTube already saw the first iteration of this show. And
which
here we
iteration
are.
is better, everybody? The first one or this one?
I literally have no idea.
Yeah, no clue. No clue. What the heck is going on? It's so weird. Anyway.
We love you guys for like noticing and saying we need some jokes to come out of this for sure.
Oh man, did we say anything bad?
No. We were good. We were good. We said all the bad stuff before the show.
Yeah, right. We got lucky because very often we say some like curse words and we say horrible
shit for sure. Oh, sorry.
We say horrible things about the listeners usually. When we're not on the air, but thank goodness we didn't do that. All right, anyway, waiver wire, recapping last night's 10-7 game.
Jamie's gone.
Let's get into it. Dave, who are the top 3 waiver wire priorities?
My 3 waiver wire priorities. Are we sure we're live now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I got a list of guys just to stash. So this is for the fantasy managers that don't need bye week replacements. Only 2 teams are on bye. Joe Burrow is number 1, and he's an IR stash for now. Looks like he'll be back around Thanksgiving. and that could be a league winner for obvious reasons. Number 2 is Sean Tucker. Adam, we talked about him on Thursday. Somebody who had good efficiency again, close carries to Rachaad White again, should get more playing time moving forward. Not a terrible matchup this coming week against Buffalo. I wonder if Sean Tucker, if you've got some stones, you could use him this week, but I'd rather stash him. And then the third stash is Brenton Strange, who might come off of IR this week. So again, this is only like a stash list, not guys that you could use right away with the same type of confidence. Obviously, you can't use Burrow right away, but it's Burrow, Tucker, Strange, top 3 to stash.
Guys, we have to start over. Yeah, look, let's be real.
If we're starting over, there's only going to be 2 of us coming back.
Let's be real. This is not the best waiver wire week. Usually I ask Jamie, he writes the column, I ask him for his top 3 priorities first, but he was laughing so hard he had to go off camera. But he's back now. So Jamie, by the way, I like your jacket. Who are your top 3 waiver wire priorities for week 11?
I'll go Burrow as well. I agree with Dave. Like if you're looking for the thing about quarterback this week is there's a handful of guys that could help you if you need a replacement option. So if you're the Daniel Jones manager or you just don't like your quarterback situation, you got Jacoby Brissett, you got Tua in a great matchup, you got Geno Smith in a great matchup, you got Mariota who's playing, at a decent level for fantasy managers. There's just a handful of guys that can help you. So if you don't need a quarterback for this week and you're just looking ahead, Burrow is the easy one. I'm going to go with Amari DiMercato next. Looks like he's going to be the lead running back for the Cardinals, taking on a 49ers run defense that's been pretty bad since losing Fred Warner. And so looking at the situation with, as long as Trey Benson doesn't come back, you have Zonovan Knight banged up. DiMercato's played well each of the last 2 weeks, and I think he's going to get a bigger opportunity because I don't think they trust Michael Carter. So he's going to be second. And then I'll put Sean Tucker third. I do think that he can have some opportunity to play well in this week's game. It is, again, contingent on Bucky Irving not being back as well. But really, the quarterbacks and the tight ends, they're kind of in a similar situation of there's good guys and potential starters. Running back and wide receiver, you're basically hoping for certain situations to unfold. Running back's a little bit better than wide receiver this week just because there's not a standout guy.
I think, first of all, Dave, let me ask you, why did you go with Tucker over DiMercato?
Not sure if DiMercato is going to be the main running back. We don't have an update on Zonovan Knight, but it looks like he's going to miss the game. Trey Benson, the update was that he's progressing. Jonathan Gannon was he tried to be coy, like he does his best Bill Belichick impersonation whenever he talks about the running back. So he was coy about Benson. But the second that the IR window opens for him, you've got to assume he'll be back as soon as possible. DiMercato didn't get a ton of work, and the playing time was split pretty close last week between him and Knight. I'm not sure if he's going to get just like a lion's share with Michael Carter picking up scraps behind him. I like DiMercato. I just don't want to invest heavily with a lot of fab or maybe only my top waiver claim if I only need a running back for week 11. And he's somebody just to kind of have on your bench just in case he ends up being one of 2 running backs that we're looking at for Arizona against the Niners.
All right, we got Jonathan Taylor and Alvin Kamara on bye. Colts and Saints are the only 2 teams with a bye this week. Tucker, by the way, 9 carries and 12 carries in his last 2 games. He has 1 catch in those 2 games. There have actually been 6 running backs who have scored a rushing touchdown against the Bills with 12 or fewer carries. Seems like a pretty fluky stat, but they are really bad against the run. So Tucker might have that opportunity. We didn't mention any wide receivers. You do have the injury to Romeo Doubs, so that made Jamie put Christian Watson atop his wide receiver list. We'll talk about that a little bit later. As far as Burrow goes, just, he's 50% rostered. If you have an IR spot, I imagine he's already there. So He wants to come back around Thanksgiving, which is 3 games from now, which would be Baltimore. But they could be, they're 3-6. So they could be 3-8 at that point. If they are, look, I absolutely agree. Joe Burrow is a great player to add. No question. I'm just giving a word of caution. He may not play. They might, if they're out of it, if they're 3-8.
Well, he told Jay Glazer he's playing the Thursday night game. That's
All
2
right.
games from now, actually.
But didn't they say that the record might, or am I making that up? I mean,
I'm going to guess what they said at the start of it is different from where he feels like he is right now. So they went into it with a 3-month timeline. He got hurt in week 2, 3-month timeline. Mm-hmm. And if they're out of it, they may not rush him back. I don't think they ever said anything definitively he's coming back or not coming back.
Correct.
So he feels he's ahead of his time frame. They obviously feel so as well from a team standpoint because they opened the 21-day window. And then you get the report from Jay Glazer, where Burrow apparently said it himself that he's playing in that Thursday night game. So that's 3 games from now, but 2 games in between here and in between our timeline. So I would anticipate him playing, whether their record is having them out of the playoffs or not.
And I would love to have a quarterback like Burrow throwing to those receivers in Cincinnati on a team that has no defense. So every game should be a high scoring game. Baltimore at Miami, Arizona, weeks 15, 16, 17, fantasy playoffs, Joe Burrow, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns.
I think just the thing you have to know, if you just started playing this season or haven't followed Joe Burrow's career and you just watching what the Bengals are doing, in 4 games, Joe Flacco is averaging 30 fantasy points per game. That is number 1 quarterback numbers. Not number 1 as in terms of a number 1 guy. That is number 1 in the league.
Honestly, the matchups aren't even that good, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right. No, so what I read was Ben Baby from ESPN. His article about it said Burrow didn't rule out the notion that the team's overall record will factor into that decision. But let's go ahead and just say pick him up and hope for the best because you could have a league-winning player on your roster, and that's pretty exciting. We'll talk about FAB in just a moment. It is time for football at BetMGM. Register with BetMGM to get instant access to the best variety of parlay selection features, no sweat and boost tokens, live betting options, and much more. New players can receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets with the bonus code FANTASY if they don't win their first bet. So you don't want to miss out on any of the hard-hitting action at BetMGM. Place your money line, parlay bets, and more today. BetMGM, make it legendary. All right, if Joe Burrow were available in your league, you've got a $100 starting budget. I don't know what you have now. I know I struggle with that. People, you should do remaining budget. I don't know. Some people have $5 left. Some people have $60. You never know. How much do you think Joe Burrow, Dave, is worth in FAB?
I think you could go as high as 11%. And the reason why I say 11 is because I think a lot of people in your league will go 10% to get Joe Burrow on their squad. So spend the extra buck. It's one of my rules for auction drafts, and same thing applies to FAB. Always go a little bit higher for the players that could be difference makers for your fantasy fortunes.
I think if you're looking at it at this point in the season and your roster is pretty set and that's the guy you feel like can be a difference maker for you, then you spend what you have to spend. I wouldn't go crazy for it, but again, like you love the way your roster is set up, and that guy can be any of these guys, not just in terms of Joe Burrow, but we're getting to the point in the season now where you want to make sure that playoff roster is looking as explosive as it can be. And again, he's got top 5 upside.
Remember, if you're on a CBS league and you're doing your waiver claims and you go to the players page, the stats page, you see the projections. Joe Burrow's not going to be in the projections. He's definitely not playing this week. So you got to type it in or just go to the roster trends and look at the most rostered players or whatever. But whatever it is, just he's not going to be in the projections. So don't forget to look for Joe Burrow. Don't forget to look for Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is another guy that, he's about 70% rostered.
Yeah,
74.
he's out there in about a quarter of leagues.
So he's got Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been great the last 2 weeks against Daniel Jones and Justin Herbert. The week before that, they gave up 32 points to Joe Flacco on 47 pass attempts. Okay, so any other players? I think if you're desperate for a running back and you need to win this week, you could. If Amari Mercado's the guy, how about this, Dave? If you find out later today when we're off the air, we don't have a CBS Sports Network show today, by the way. If you find out later today that Zonovan Knight and Benson are out, or waivers run on Wednesday and a Wednesday night, and you find out at that point, yeah, but like how much would you spend on that?
That's one where if I needed a running back, you'd have to open up the purse strings. You'd have to go 20% plus, maybe even plus.
Okay.
And in the case of both DeMercado and Tucker, like there could be even more than just 1 week. Like the Cardinals have given no indication that Benson's going to return this week. We were just kind of hopeful because they went into their bye, and then the game after their bye, which was last week, was the first opportunity for them to activate him, and they didn't need any practice. And we don't know, again, as Dave alluded to, we don't know how long Zonovan Knight's going to be out. And then in the case of the Bucs situation, like the last 2 weeks has been trending toward Sean Tucker getting more work. And it makes sense. Rashad White just hasn't run well. So do they start to make a significant shift even more so this week. The problem is in both of these cases, even if they're the quote unquote starters, I don't think the backups are going away. I still think Michael Carter's going to have a role, even if Knight is out. I still think Rashad White's going to have a role, even if Sean Tucker is the lead guy. So there's no like slam dunk. This is a must start running. This isn't Kamani Vidal. This isn't he's stepping into a starting role and you know what the touches are going to be. This is still going to be messy, and there's still bad run offenses, both of them. You know, the question, the thing you're hoping for in the case of Tucker is, can he fall into the end zone this week against the Bills? Adam gave you that stat. The answer is probably yes, if he's going to be that guy. And in the case of DeMercado, the production for the Cardinals running backs, it's always good. Somebody always does something good. Just, you know, unfortunately, without James Conner there now, it just hasn't been consistent. But there's opportunities for both these guys.
And the 49ers in their last 4 games since losing Fred Warner, they haven't been that bad against the run, but they haven't been that good either. And they've allowed 15.1 or more fantasy points to a running back in 3 of their last 4 games. Granted,
it's not always about against the run. It's the fantasy production.
Yeah, granted, it's Bijan Robinson who had a big game receiving. Kyron Williams had a big game. The other guy was Woody Marks, who had 11 for 62 rushing and 4 for 49 receiving. The Giants running backs were awful against San Francisco. They still have held up decently against the run, but they are giving up fantasy points since Fred Warner was lost to the season-ending injury. All right, we are going to, I think one of the biggest dilemmas this week is, Jamie, you talked about it on Sunday night, how many great quarterbacks there are on the waiver wire. Tua and Mariota facing off against bad defenses, facing off against each other in bad defenses. Geno Smith against Dallas. Every single quarterback that has faced Dallas this year has finished top 12. You have to combine.
It's about to be tested, but yes.
Yeah, but it's been tested before, and it keeps happening. You have to combine Daniels and Mariota that 1 week. But like, what do you do if you have, Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff, for example, going up against each other Sunday night? So that's a big storyline. We'll talk about that. We'll give you the news and notes. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today.
Somebody already, I give him credit, at Hosh J. Ismith. I guess I'm screwing that up, but he already sent us a tweet that said, it's a picture of Thomas doing the timeout. They said, what Adam Mazer wants to do every time Dan and I curse on air.
Yeah, no, different hand motion is what I want to do. Okay, news and notes. The Giants fired Brian Daboll. They named their offensive coordinator, Mike Kafka, their interim head coach. They've had the hardest schedule in football. It is unrelenting. Their next 3 games are Green Bay, at Detroit, and at New England. Tough year for the Giants, no question. And hopefully Jackson Dart back sooner rather than later, but he's obviously in the concussion protocol.
What do you think they do there?
In terms
it's
of
the 4th time he's been evaluated for a concussion already.
Yeah.
Since preseason. Like, do you think they shut him down?
No. Oh God, no.
It depends on how he's feeling, obviously. Like, if he's not right, then they probably would shut him down for.
But like, he's clearly shown you enough that he's worth investing in next season as the starter.
Unquestionably so.
And you have this brutal schedule. You have no head coach. You have a playing style that's not going to change. Like, why would you risk it?
Because you want to have him develop.
Why don't you sit him down for the rest of his career?
No, not the rest of his career. Not the rest of his career. But there's nothing to gain.
I feel like we're about to get an Adam rant here, Jamie, because you do this a lot.
Jamie always wants to rest players. Just give them their retirement fund and just let them.
No, not at all. If it's a non-competitive team at this point.
Yeah, but if he's healthy, he needs to play. I mean, he's only gotten 6 starts or whatever under his belt. He needs to play. If you're really trying to evaluate Mike Kafka,
if he's healthy, I agree with you 100%.
I think if you're really, right. If he clears concussion protocol and he's good to go, he has to play. And if you're trying to evaluate this interim head coach, who, by the way, has gotten a number of interviews for head coaching jobs, then he obviously needs Jackson Dart. And there's just so much to be gained from being out there and developing. He has to change his style of play. He has to.
He has to learn how to slide. He has to learn how to slide, and they have to stop calling quarterback dives. Like 4th and 1, you got to think of something else, at least for the rest of this year.
I don't know. I mean,
He's got to play, though.
He's
Put him
good
out.
running the ball, but he needs to do better. People were blaming Dable for it, and I honestly just think it's Jackson Dart. I think he seeks contact. He's kind of a madman out there. He has to change.
Mm-hmm.
They got to play Winston at this point, right?
Oh, please.
I hope so.
I can't even believe that Russell Wilson's still the number 2 quarterback. Joe Burrow returned to practice. This was interesting news. Denver linebacker Alex Singleton had surgery for testicular cancer. He should be just fine. Probably not out that long. They have the Chiefs this week and then a bye. So hopefully Singleton back pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this huge game against Kansas City, they're going to be likely without Singleton, obviously without Patrick Surtain. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not a given, but likely without Surtain. And maybe without J.K. Dobbins, who has this foot injury that we're waiting to hear an update on. No timetable yet for Bucky Irving's return. Dan Quinn is going to take over defensive play calling duties for Washington. Hey, Ricky Pearsall could practice this week. Austin Hooper is in the concussion protocol, and they play Thursday against the Jets, which that's going to be a really good game. Oronde Gadsden, this was great news. Oronde Gadsden day-to-day with a thigh bruise. So we got dodged a bullet there. Dalton Kincaid, on the other hand, is week to week. Rashad Bateman does not appear to have a serious ankle injury. John Harbaugh also said he wants to get Keaton Mitchell more involved. And, this has been such a tough matchup. Their defense, I mean, they gave up a big game to Jalen Naylor, but their defense has been really good. But now Marlon Humphrey, their best cornerback, who did a really nice job, didn't shadow Jefferson, but he was on him a lot. He could miss time with a finger injury. They're at Cleveland this week. That's Baltimore. Romeo Doubs, chest injury. Center Elton Jenkins, ankle injury last night. Isaiah Pacheco, we thought he was going to come back this week. There were reports about that. Now they are not so fast. He might not be back this week, Isaiah Pacheco. And then the big one, Garrett Wilson. He's out at least 3 to 4 weeks with a knee sprain, and we still don't know who the Jets quarterback is going to be on Thursday. We'll find out Friday morning.
Wink, wink.
Okay, what do you think? It's going to be Justin Fields?
Yes.
Yeah. Over under 60 passing yards in this game?
For Fields?
Yeah.
Over. He'll get to 70.
All right.
Under.
All right. Again, no CBS Sports Network today, but I do believe we have a show on Thursday.
We do.
Okay.
Who suffered a concussion who's dealing with a concussion for the Patriots?
Hooper. Yeah. Did you want me to say Hooper?
No. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
And I didn't know about it until yesterday. It's kind of flew under the radar.
That happens occasionally where players' concussion reports come out a day later.
Especially when it's a backup and we're not necessarily paying so much attention to it.
It doesn't change anything for Hunter Henry, does it?
It's just been so tough to trust him. So
Yeah. All right. CBS Sports Network then Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Top 3 players at each position. Quarterback is super fun this week. Jamie, who are your top 3?
So Burrow would be one. Again, that's more of a long-term situation as opposed to short-term. If you just wanted the 3 short-term options, for me, Jacoby Brissett is 1, Tua Tagovailoa is 2, and Marcus Mariota is 3. So again, Burrow more of a stash candidate, but if you're looking for just replacement options for this week, I'd go Jacoby Brissett 1, Tua 2, and Mariota 3. But you can have Geno Smith in there and keep an eye on, obviously, Joe Flacco, keep an eye on Aaron Rodgers, 2 guys that have huge potential this week based on what Flacco has done and who Rodgers is facing. They're playing each other. And so this is just one of those weeks where if you don't want to necessarily spend to get a replacement option at quarterback, you might not have to, and you can still get somebody that can give you some solid production.
Brissett has San Francisco. 5 of the last 6 quarterbacks to face the Niners have scored 23.6 or more fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues.
And he's been almost exactly at that number in 4 straight starts.
Yeah. And there's been some 30 burgers in there too against San Francisco. Tua's got the Commanders. 4 straight quarterbacks have scored 29 or more points against the Commanders, but that is Dak Prescott, Mahomes, Darnold, and Goff. And then Mariota's got the Dolphins, who are 25th against quarterbacks, and Mariota pretty much always scores about 20 to 22 fantasy points. So who are some quarterbacks, Jamie, I'll just keep it with you. Who are some quarterbacks that you'd consider benching for Brissett, Tua, or Mariota?
Goff would be one. You mentioned it, just playing the Philadelphia defense. They looked great last night. I think that will continue. Bo Nix will be another one, coming off a disappointing game and taking on the Chiefs. I don't love that situation for him. Jordan Love, who's been struggling and now loses another, potential weapon with Romeo Doubs on top of Tucker Kraft and not Matthew Golden. I'm trying to think any other like must start guys. That's probably it.
Did you say Jalen Hurts?
No, I would still start Hurts over them. I think just based on Hurts, I don't really trust the Detroit secondary as much, and I think Hurts will bounce back and play a little bit better than he did last week. Green Bay's defense is still good.
It is. How about Baker Mayfield at Buffalo?
Still start Baker.
How about Joe Flacco versus like Baker and Hurts?
There's no chance I'd be benching Joe Flacco right now.
What about Aaron Rodgers?
So I have Rodgers just ahead of these guys. It's kind of like this is where like the if I was doing projections, it would be like 20.5, 20.4, 20.3, 20. Like it just they're so bunched up and close. I again, this is kind of what I'm getting at. Like if you don't need if I have 2 roster spots available to me and one of them is I need a quarterback and the other one is just one to take whatever best player available, I'd be picking up Burrow first, and then whichever of these quarterbacks I get second.
Aaron Rodgers coming off a bad game against the Chargers, but I looked and saw, against Cincinnati.
2 bad games in a row.
Yeah, 2 bad games in a row. Right. But and we as fantasy managers and human beings, we have the tendency to just look at what just happened and react to it. I understand. But like Trevor Lawrence scored 13.7 fantasy points in 3 of his first 4 games. Then he had a big game against Cincinnati. Bo Nix had a bad game the week before against the Chargers, the week before Cincinnati. Then he blew up, had a huge game against Cincinnati. Jared Goff, 2 straight bad games, then big game against Cincinnati. Caleb Williams scored 16.5 combined fantasy points in his previous 2 games, then 44.7 against Cincinnati. So,
and they're not expecting Trey Hendrickson to play again.
Oh, perfect. All right, so quarterback's great. Dave, we talked about DeMarcado and Tucker. Are there any other running backs that you'd want to add?
Not that they're sexy names, but Tyler Algier is available in about 40% of CBS Sports leagues, and I think that he's somebody who could be in range for maybe 10 PPR points. I think you start him and you hope for him to get around that range, and that feels like a higher number than what you could expect from Devin Singletary, who's 55% available. So if we're not stashing Sean Tucker, the 3 names would be DeMarcado 1, Tyler Algier 2, Devin Singletary 3, but Tucker's ahead of all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm treating Tucker as a flex. I know you keep saying stash, which makes sense, but
no, he's the flex. He could be in there.
Yeah, I would play him at this point over Rashad White in this matchup.
Just a thought on Algier. When does Algier usually do well? Not last week, notwithstanding, but it's when they win. And he gets a lot of fourth quarter carries. He's got some opportunities for that. I'm not saying it's going to happen all 3 games, but the next 3 games for Algier are Carolina, at the Saints, and at the Jets.
But it's not just the wins. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games. So he's unfortunately stealing too many goal line opportunities. Like he had 2 1-yard touchdown runs last week. It's becoming very frustrating for the Bijan Robinson managers. And so hopefully, there's a switch there. But then Algier can still be productive, to your point, in games where they're trying to maybe use him a little bit more to kill the clock. It's just been, one of these situations that's a little annoying from the Robinson standpoint, but beneficial if you have had to play Algier in any stretch.
Yeah, you're not going to like hearing this if you're a Bijan owner, but by the end of the game, Algier was the better running back for Atlanta. Like running downhill, much, much better, much smoother, much more in sync with the offensive line, more powerful. Like he looked like the better guy. It was let's call it a 4th quarter sample size, but he looked better than Bijan by the end of the game. And I just pronounced Bijan's name differently twice in that sentence.
Okay. So that's your running backs. So quarterbacks were Tua, Brissett, Tua, and Mariota. And running backs.
And that's if you don't need Burrow.
DeMarcado, Tucker, Algier, Devin Singletary. You could also go if you want 7 to 9 fantasy points. Tajay Spears could be that guy.
Yeah, there's names we can get to later. Spears is on that list.
Well, I would also say, in the same vein as Algier, the last 2 weeks, Brian Robinson Jr. has scored a touchdown each of those 2 games and 11 or more PPR points. Actually been more successful than Algier over the last 2 weeks combined.
All right, wide receiver, Jamie, who are the top 3 wide receivers?
Yeah, again, another position that has a lot of question marks, but I actually combined the 2 Packers guys just because Dontavian Wicks did have the target lead for them last night. So Christian Watson would be the first place to look just because I think he's more explosive. We know what this Giants secondaries look like. And hopefully he'll get more than 4 targets. He's been capped at 4 targets each of the last 3 games since coming back from the ACL tear, but he's averaging over 23 yards per catch. So maybe this leads to a big play or 2, gets him in the end zone. So I don't have Wicks second, but I do have Watson there. But you can look at both Packers wide receivers. I put Darius Slayton second, mostly on the hope that it's Jameis Winston, but still I think even with Russell Wilson, with the moon balls that'll throw, that plays into Darius Slayton's game. And so hopefully he can have another, 11, 12 PPR point game. It's not, again, a great week at wide receiver, so take that into account. But Dart can still play. There's the upside of Jameis. I think Slayton has a great schedule at the end of the season, so maybe Dart does come back, or again, Jameis is the starter there. But again, what Wilson does best does play into what Slayton does best as well. And then I put Parker Washington third. Again, it's just one of these weeks where the wide receiver, not a great standout guy. In the case of Washington, Thomas may return. Brian Thomas may return. Jacoby Myers clearly going to be more involved. At least that would be the expectation. But 7+ targets in 3 straight games. I think just based on how the Chargers play, he's going to have a lot of opportunities. We'll see if Brenton Strange comes back. That'll factor into this as well. But Parker Washington right now seems to be the go-to guy for Trevor Lawrence, just based on how quickly he's trying to get the ball out and who's the guy they trust.
Washington, I wish, is this really more of a 1 week thing? Because with Strange coming back, with Hunter, Brian Thomas, with Jacoby Myers, he only played 50% of the snaps. Do I feel like I'm getting any more than 1 week out of Parker Washington?
So I think that's certainly a rational school of thought when it comes to what the Jaguars receiving core is. We don't know when Brian Thomas is coming back. You have at least 2 more games where Hunter is not going to be available. It would not be surprising, based on some things that are coming out of Jacksonville, that Hunter doesn't return this year because of the injury. So it may be longer than that. And who knows if Jacoby Myers is able to leap over Washington from the standpoint of earning the trust of the coaching staff and Trevor Lawrence. So I think just in the case of Washington, you take it on a week-by-week basis, not necessarily investing a lot of fab in him. And look, he scored a touchdown, as we, you and Heath argued on Sunday. If you get points for returns, then he's more beneficial to you, because he's been doing that consistently all season long, getting return yardage. But in the case of just him as a wide receiver, redraft leagues, I think you just kind of approach it as, am I picking up a number 3 receiver in a 3 receiver league? Then that's probably the guy you should be thinking of.
All right. So the top 3 wide receiver priorities are Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks possibly in there as well, Darius Slayton and Parker Washington. Dave, how about tight ends?
So the top tight end that I like is Dalton Schultz, provided that he's healthy. We don't know this. What's the report week to week on Dalton Schultz, Jamie?
Schultz is fine.
No, Dalton Kincaid is week to week.
I thought Schultz had an issue too. Am I crazy? If
Not
Schultz
that
is fine, he's the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
Double check that, because maybe I'm just nuts. Sounds like I'm nuts. So Schultz would be number 1. Njoku would be number 2. And Brenton Strange would be number 3. Jamie mentioned him when he was talking about Parker Washington. His window to practice is opened, and I think that he's very a target. I think he and Parker Washington are the 2 guys that are most in sync with Trevor Lawrence right now. In time, Jacoby should fill in admirably and be in sync with Trevor Lawrence, but those are going to be the 3 that you'll look at. We're hoping that Brian Thomas Jr. takes steps to be, explosive and great once again, but it's been a while, man. We're in week 11. He really hasn't been on the same page consistently with Trevor Lawrence. So all these short area guys that Trevor Lawrence can lean on to dink and dunk, it'll add up. It'll add up to 10 PPR points, or 7.5 and half PPR. And Strange can get you that. But I do like Schultz and Njoku better. Why do I think that Dalton Schultz?
Yeah. Do you want to start the show over, Dave?
Let's do it. Yeah.
This is the first week where
The timeout is going to be the best thing ever.
Yeah, amazing. I really can't believe that during that moment, again, if you weren't listening or if you didn't see it live, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But we do the show 2 to 3 minutes in, I think. We're about to get into the priority. Thomas comes up on the screen. He's a timeout. We're not live. I don't know what happened. We're not live. And we weren't, according to the program we use. And then we start doing it again. And we were live. But I can't believe that we didn't say anything bad or anything that we regret. Like, it is
hashtag professional.
No, but it's nothing that could get us in trouble. I mean, we got lucky there.
In trouble. Jamie's been cursing for 3 weeks now on every show.
I know.
Apparently it's allowed.
It's
Every other podcast does it.
No, it's not allowed. It's not our show. It's not our show. It needs to stop. This is the first.
I usually do it one specific time, but I'm not going to tell you what that is.
No, just don't do it. So
no, I'm going to do it.
No, you seriously stop. So what? This is the first week where I feel like first week in a while where I really don't like the tight ends. on the waiver wire.
Well, it's not amazing, but it's good.
Because
Well,
not great.
I think there's a reason for that though, because we've gotten such great production from the position. Like you're not chasing that many guys anymore.
I guess.
Here's the problem. You don't have Tyler Warren this week. If you just picked up Jawan Johnson, you did well with him last week. You can't use him. Kincaid is week to week. Gadsden, we don't know if he's going to play.
True.
And so the problem is that it's not as plentiful, and there's going to be demand for it. So maybe the waiver priority and the fab bids have to be a little bit higher than you would think for guys like Schultz, Njoku. Double check for Fannin and Otten. They're still out there in about 30% of CBS Sports leagues. We'll talk. I know we'll get into the position a little bit deeper. There's a couple of sleepers here that could help you out.
Well, now it's time for coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. And Jamie, let's get a DST to stream this week.
My favorite one's the Chiefs, just because the Broncos offense has been struggling quite a bit. They're coming off their bye week. They should be rested, should be ready to go. So I like them. I also like the Falcons and then the Cowboys and the Dolphins. So 3 defenses that have clearly been struggling, but have some good matchups based on some offenses that are in some rough shape. But I think the Chiefs, just given what they're looking at right now, have a chance to help you out this week as a low-end starter, not a top 5 DST like we've had a couple of times during the segment. But I think just based on Bo Nix and how bad he's looked, Chiefs could really make him look even worse in this matchup. Plus, you have no Dobbins, most likely.
And that was coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. So it's the Chiefs, the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Dolphins at DST. Streamer, doesn't look like a great week there. What about kicker?
Kickers would be you got Tyler Loop, who's coming off a strong game. Harrison Butker coming back, kicking in the altitude. Borregales taking on the Jets, and then Zane Gonzalez. I expect him to be the kicker still for the Falcons, just based on what their situation looked like last week. So good matchup for him taking on the Panthers, in his building. No weather issues.
All right, so we haven't talked about the shallow league guys. Dave just mentioned Cade Otten. That could be a great guy to pick up. Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson is now 5th in fantasy points per target among wide receivers with 25 or more targets. So he's been terrific. And there's some other players in the shallow leagues that you should be adding, and the deep leagues, and last night's game, and the Worryometer, and more on the waiver wire when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
That is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
All right, into the shallow leagues, Jamie. So who are some of the players that if they were available, they are clear top priorities on the waiver wire?
Yeah, Joe Flacco, for sure. 74% roster taking on the Steelers. And I know they played better of late, as you alluded to, but he beat them up the last time these two teams met. And again, averaging 30.4 fantasy points per game in 4 starts. So I don't think he's going to be a disaster. He may not be that good, but not somebody that should crush your team. And then Rodgers, like we said, 22.6 points combined in his last 2 games against the Chargers and the Colts, but he gets the Bengals, which is great. And then also gets the Bears next week after that. So it could be 2 weeks for Aaron Rodgers. Running backs, you have a few guys that could be helpful. I put Pacheco on this list. I didn't realize that he wasn't expected to come back because I thought there was the Tracy Wilson report that he was expected to return following the bye. So we'll see what happens there. But Trey Benson and Tyjae Spears, I think at some point when Benson does return, he's going to be, if not a number 2 running back, a borderline number 2 running back in all leagues. And Spears, as you alluded to, 9 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games since coming back from his injury. So not a bad flex play. Also a lottery ticket appeal if something happens to Tony Pollard. Wide receiver, it's clearly better on this list than it is the guys that are available off waivers. I think Shaheed and Myers will be better than what their debuts were. Shaheed's 82%. They're both 82% rostered on our site. But Shaheed, Sam Darnold threw 12 passes. He had 1 target. I think he'll be better, clearly, moving forward. Potential shootout with the Rams this week. Myers, same thing as well. It's worth stashing Alec Pierce throughout their bye. He's got 20 targets in his last 2 games, 17.5 PPR points each of those 2. Hopefully continues to play like this. We see a lot of shootouts coming for the Colts because of what their matchups will be. You mentioned Tez Johnson. He's been awesome, 15.8 PPR points or more each in 2 of his last 3 games. Trey Tucker, similar to the 2 guys that were traded. Tucker should be better with Myers gone, plus he gets the Cowboys this week. And then Jawan Jennings, I think at this point we have to treat him as at least a number 2 receiver. He's been great in his last 2 games. Who knows when Pearsall and Ayuk come back at this point. Doesn't matter whether it's Ayuk or Mac Jones. They're both going to look for him as Mac Jones has. So
What about Purdy? What if could it be Purdy too?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's Mac Jones. What did I say?
You said Ayuk or Mac Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ayuk or Pierce we don't know when they're going to come back. Purdy
Right.
or Mac Jones at quarterback. I don't think it
Start the
matters.
show over. Start it over, Adam. We got to start
Start
from
over.
the beginning now.
I'm not.
And then the tight ends, Harold Fannin, I know he didn't have a big game, but 3 of his last 4 with at least 7 targets. Cade Otton was awesome last week for the Bucks. Should continue as long as Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are out, and that should be for at least another 3 weeks. And then Theo Johnson, again, keep an eye on the quarterback situation there, but he's just been fantastic against everybody except the Eagles, and he's not playing the Eagles again.
Okay. Honestly, I think, 5 names if I saw them on the waiver wire just based on Jamie's list. Flacco for sure. Otton and Tez Johnson. Benson for sure. And then I'd say Juwan Jennings would be 5th for me. Those would be like the big 5. Alec Pierce, for those of you wondering, I just want to tell you how ridiculous Alec Pierce's season is. He has a 20-yard ADOT. 20 yard. The average depth of target when he is targeted, on average, 20 air yards. I went back, I looked, like, you don't find good receivers, good fantasy receivers, reliable fantasy receivers with ADOTs over 15 very often. 16 almost never. So what Alec Pierce is doing is really unprecedented. And it's not just like, oh, he had one game where he had like a 40-yard ADOT. Every single week, his ADOT has been 16 yards or higher. So based on that, it's either he's going to have one of the most remarkable seasons that we've seen just in terms of that metric, or it's not sustainable. And I can't be like, well, his ADOT's going to drop. I don't think it is. But
again, I think when you put it in context, you're not talking about a must-start wide receiver yet. He may become that if this continues. But as a high-end number 3 receiver, like, this is the perfect type of guy because he's going to win you some weeks.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's got Kansas. He's got a bye. Then he's at the Chiefs. Then he's got the Texans. So the next 3 weeks are tough.
I think he's absolutely morphing into that receiver who becomes a must start. First of all, they're using him a little bit differently last week. Obviously, the downfield stuff is there, and that's great, but a little bit of route differentiation over the last couple of weeks. 7+ targets in 3 of his last 4. He just scored his first touchdown on the year last week, and 3 of his last 4 games, he's had at least 14.8 PPR points. If he's out there, he's a priority to pick up, even though he's on bye.
That's Alec Pierce. Would you pick up Alec Pierce, Tez Johnson, or Juwan Jennings?
How badly do I need a wide receiver to start this week? If I need a wide receiver to start, Jennings would probably be first on my shopping list. Otherwise, it would be Pierce.
I would go. It's close between Tez and Juwan. Like, I just think that game's got so much shootout potential between the Bucks and the Bills.
Yeah, but you just said the same thing about the Niners Seahawks. Oh, it's Rams Seahawks. My bad.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tez, Juwan, Pierce. And that's even if Pierce was playing this week.
Dave, what are we doing here? Why are we talking about these guys aren't available in my league? Give me the deep leaguers.
You're going to need some prayers at quarterback. You better pray that Jacoby Brissett is somehow out there. Otherwise, Geno Smith is going to be first on your ad list. He's taking on Dallas. We already talked about what quarterbacks do against the Cowboys this year. Maybe Geno gets there, but also keep in mind that this is a different Dallas defense up front. Adding Quinnen Williams makes a huge difference, figuratively and literally, when it comes to their pass rush. And we know that that is definitely the Achilles heel for Geno Smith, is when there's pressure on him, man, he definitely melts down. The offensive line might not be great. He might not be at 100%. I'm making the case for him to be the top guy you go and pick up in the deepest of leagues at quarterback. Also, Davis Mills is out there. We don't know if CJ Stroud's going to be back. Mac Jones would probably be ahead of even Geno Smith, but we don't know if he's going to end up playing. So a lot of balls in the air at quarterback, but Geno probably the one that people will gravitate toward because of the matchup in week 11. At running back, Sean Tucker, 88% available. That's the cherry on top with him this week. The fact that he's flex worthy, could be a stash, might evolve into a league winner. We just don't know what's happening with Bucky Irving and that backfield in Tampa, but it still could be a while before Bucky's back. And Tucker looks like, just as far as talent goes, the more explosive runner between he and Rashad White. Michael Carter is still out there. Jeremy McNichols is still out there. These are guys I'm not excited about, but in the deepest of leagues, you will find them on your waiver wire because they're available in like 85% plus of CBS Sports leagues. At wide receiver, we haven't mentioned Luther Burden yet. And I wonder if he starts to see his role evolve in Chicago. 80% available, definitely has springs in his legs. He can go. I love the play that he had late last week, and I think he gets a little bit more involved. I wonder if all that work that we were hoping for Colson Loveland actually ends up going to Luther Burden. So in those deeper leagues, maybe he's the receiver you target and stash and see what happens with, because you're not going to find Pierce, Jennings, Tez, all those other guys on your waiver wire. Other wide receivers, Jamie mentioned Dontavian Wicks. The 8 targets are encouraging. The fact that everybody else is getting banged up in Green Bay, also encouraging. But I do worry, like if Matthew Golden's healthy next week, does that mean Dontavian Wicks goes down to 4 targets or 5 targets? Do we make it? What do we see anything in Mac Hollins? The fact that he's had a couple of nice games in a row. I wouldn't want to use him this week. He's more of like a deepest of league stash. I don't even feel good mentioning him, but he's 98% available. I would put Cedric Tillman ahead of him. I would put Shimray DK ahead of him. Those guys are 80+% available. Jalen Naylor, we talked about him on Sunday, deepest of leagues, 93% available. And then at tight end, Brenton Strange, 85%. Pat Freiermuth, do you remember what Freiermuth did against Cincinnati the last time it wasn't that long ago? And I think that the Steelers, are looking for guys other than DK Metcalf to catch passes and make a play after the catch. And I think Freiermuth could end up being that guy. He's available in 89% of leagues. That is definitely a deep league tight end to go after. Dawson Knox is one other guy if Dalton Kincaid is out. It hasn't been amazing for Knox when Kincaid's been out, but 8-9 PPR points somewhere in there, and he's 99% available. Also in that game between the Steelers and the Bengals, Noah Fant, 86% available. You can be desperate enough to go after Noah Fant, but I'd rather have Freiermuth or Knox ahead of him.
Can I give you a few more guys?
Yeah.
You have the Giants quarterback situation. Obviously, keep an eye on there, especially if Jameis starts. Certainly in Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues, people could be looking there. Shadur Sanders, time to start stashing him just because Dylan Gabriel is struggling and the fan base is calling for him at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a quarterback change because Gabriel stinks. At wide receiver, you have a few guys. Jaden Higgins has scored a touchdown 2 of his last 3 games, playing a lot more, playing a lot better. Malik Washington scored a touchdown 2 of his last 3 games. He gets Washington. They stink. Tyler Lockett actually coming off a strong game. First game without Jacoby Myers. He actually was their best receiver last week. I know you don't want to trust him, but it's Dallas. Take a look there. And then Tyler Higbee taking on the Seahawks. They stink against tight ends. Again, potential shootout. And plus Devontae Adams, we know, is expected to play, but he was a little bit banged up. So in case Adams is whatever, limited or not his usual self, we could see Higbee having a little bit more production as well.
Would you guys rather have Higbee or Freiermuth? Higbee against Seattle, Freiermuth against Cincinnati.
Freiermuth.
I'll take Higbee.
I don't even know if Higbee is the best tight end there. They use so many of them.
The same thing about Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, I feel like Freiermuth's been the best one the past few weeks.
3 tight ends scored against Cincinnati last time they met.
4 touchdowns total.
Sorry, what'd you say?
4 touchdowns total.
Yeah. 2 for Freiermuth.
There's one sleeper I wanted to give. I thought you guys would say his name. Kept kind of flirting with it. How about Calvin Austin? He's 26%
Yeah,
rostered.
that's a good one.
So he's had 5 to 7 targets in 5 of 6 healthy games. So if we say 5 to 7 targets for Austin, he's facing the Bengals. There have been 11 wide receivers with 5 to 7 targets against the Bengals. 8 of them have scored 12.5 or more PPR fantasy points. So I can't sit here and say that in any of my leagues I'm going to pick up Calvin Austin, but there are leagues out there where Calvin Austin might look pretty good to you this week. And then there's one more wide receiver I can't wait to talk about. But before we do that, let's talk about Philadelphia with a, what the hell was the score? 10-7 win? I can't get the scores right. Philadelphia,
you got that one right.
10-7 win at Green Bay. It was as bad as it gets for fantasy. So, Jamie, what are your fantasy takeaways from this game?
I mean, like you said, it was bad. I think we saw 2 good defenses on display, and then several injuries clearly for the Packers that are impacting them. Tucker Kraft coming into the game and then losing, Romeo Doubs losing their center. Also, Lane Johnson getting hurt. That didn't help the Eagles' cause. Also, so 2 key members of each offensive line. I think in the case of the Eagles, this AJ Brown situation is just getting extremely frustrating. For us, I'm sure for them, I'm sure we're going to get some cryptic tweet about something related to his performance and lack thereof in terms of targets. So keep an eye on that. I think to me, I'm going right back to Jalen Hurts. I don't think this Detroit defense is something that you fear. They'll be at home. That game could be a shootout if the Lions offense does at least what it showed in the first game with Dan Campbell showing, his play calling ability, but not the easiest to match us because this Eagles defense is good and got even better. Barkley's still a must-start guy for the Packers. The only must-start guy at this point for me is Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love is just struggling too much and losing too many weapons. Watson's worth a flyer. Dontavian works deeper leagues worth a flyer. I think another tight end that's available in a lot of leagues is Luke Musgrave. Three targets, 3 catches. Much easier matchup this week against the Lions than it was against much easier against the Giants than it was against the Eagles. So I like him as a guy to add off waivers as well. And Goddard's still in that low end starting range. He's touchdown dependent, but wouldn't surprise me if he bounces back and scores against Detroit.
Do we think we talked a lot about Zay Flowers this week, Jamison Williams? Who was the other receiver in that, right? Maybe Tedero McMillan. Would you take any of them over AJ Brown rest of season?
I think you have to at this point. Jamison's the one that is probably the question mark, but in the last month, he's been better. He's trending in the right direction because, as Heath said, which is correct, Dan Campbell's the one that kept saying breakout season for Jamison Williams. Dan Campbell now calling the plays. The first game Dan Campbell calls plays, Jamison Williams does a bunch of different things, so there's a lot to love about that. I think Flowers, especially if Rashad Bateman with his ankle injury is out for an extended period of time, he's still going to get 7 targets, probably in that range.
No, that's kind of like what he maxes out. He's on pace for that with Lamar Jackson, but I don't know that's a given. I don't know. I think I don't know that you have to take Tedero McMillan, Zay Flowers, and Jamison Williams over AJ Brown. I
don't think you have to, but
you said that. You said I think you have to.
No, I'm sorry. I'll rephrase. You may consider it based on the body of work so far that we've seen. I mean, in the case of almost all the guys you named, they feel like they've been better than AJ Brown over the course of the season.
Well, Jamie, that's because they pretty much have.
Right.
It surprised me. Jamison Williams has been 0.3 fantasy points worse than AJ Brown.
And that's telling.
Has been 0.8 of a point better, and Zay Flowers has been 2.3 points better than AJ Brown this season. It's insane.
The schedule's great.
Wait, I don't even think that's counting last night. No, it's even AJ Brown's the worst. AJ Brown's the worst of all.
On a per game basis in PPR, totally believable because it's been bad.
No, I'm wrong. It was counting last night, but anyway, he's been bad. Good.
Okay. Listen, he's a man coverage beater, and the teams play a lot of zone against them. I think next week is going to be an interesting week. Anytime there's a defense against Philadelphia that plays a lot of man, and it could be a high scoring game, AJ Brown is in play for sure, and Detroit is one of those matchups where I think that could happen. So I'm not ready to give up on him, and I am definitely starting him over Tedero McMillan next week. It's Flowers and Jamison that you could make the case for, a convincing case for, over AJ Brown. Yeah,
Jamison is about to go from arguably the best matchup in fantasy to a pretty tough one. This is an offense that we really need to do a dive into, see what has changed for Jamison Williams. Was it just the Washington matchup?
I think it's the Dan Campbell thing. I think Jamie laid it out perfectly.
But he had a huge target share. Like, what was different? I tried to look up his route. I'll look it up right now.
I believe he was running a lot more. I would bet his ADOT was lower. Or at least
his ADOT was 10 yards. It's been 10 yards 2 straight games. That's pretty low for him.
That's good. And that's been since their bye, right?
That's been, yes, since their bye.
So they made a change during the bye. They're getting him more involved, ? Certainly the targets last week were good against Washington.
But he's still running
so explosive.
Still running a ton of go routes, which isn't great.
That's okay. Sometimes those are clear out routes, and it's meant to get other guys open. It's meant to get St. Brown open or Laporta open.
All right, let's go to the drop-o-meter. I'll just throw Jordan Love on there to start. 95% roster, Jordan Love.
You can drop him.
6.
Daniel Jones.
He's droppable. He's like an 8. He and Love for me are like 8s. You can drop him because even after the bye, what is it? Kansas City and Houston are the 2 games?
Yeah. Does have 2 games with Jacksonville left in his last 4. Caleb Williams. I put him on here because I thought Minnesota was a tough matchup. He had a good game against them earlier.
Yeah, there's no way you're dropping Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're going to say that because he just had a huge game, but he struggled a little bit before that. In fact, he's really been very matchup dependent, and he's got some really tough matchups on his rest of season schedule.
Is this a tough matchup though?
That I'm not sure about Minnesota. And then I don't know about Pittsburgh after that. Philadelphia on the road, Green Bay on the road, Cleveland, Green Bay. I don't know.
I just think you don't want to match up where the Bears are playing with a lead, because that takes the ball out of Caleb's hands for sure.
I mean, I have one league where he's my only quarterback, and I don't really feel super comfortable with that.
Right.
But,
So
that's
that's
fair.
okay to get
I mean,
another quarterback there.
I think you said it best. He's matchup dependent. There's nothing wrong with that.
all right, Mark Andrews keeps scoring, but 0 to 10.
0, as long as Lamar's the quarterback.
Kyle Pitts.
0.
2.
Would you drop him for Dalton Schultz?
Yeah.
That depends. Is Schultz playing? Yes, I would drop him for Schultz if he is my most droppable asset on my bench.
Keenan Allen.
It's so interesting with the Rondé Gaston injury right now. So if Gaston's healthy, then I think you can make a case. Yes, like the fact that that's how they had to get him the record was, I think it's awesome, but it was a little bit like, really? Like you couldn't throw him
his
past
idea.
him?
It was his idea.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I felt the same. I was like, oh, that's. I feel like he would have wanted a different type of catch, but it was actually Keenan Allen's idea to get the little pop pass.
Adam, we had a talk off air about Quentin Johnson. Did you talk about it on Beyond the Box Score on Monday?
Yeah. Quite a bit.
Yeah, good. So I think everybody who missed Beyond the Box Score on Monday should go back and listen to that. Quentin Johnston took over what Keenan Allen had been doing before. And Keenan Allen's route rate has hit the skids. Like it was 60% last week. And that was, I think, a 3-week high for him. So he's not playing as much, and he's not getting the same types of opportunities that he did earlier in the year. He's like a 3-ish on the drop-o-meter, and he could turn into like a 7 in a week.
That's why I was laughing.
Johnny Airport says, defied off air.
He's so quick.
We've really blurred the lines. All right, waiver wire. Okay, so the quarterbacks, we love Flacco. Jamie would have Rodgers just ahead of Jacoby Brissett, Tua Tagovailoa, Marcus Mariota. We like all of them. Burrow's the guy to stash. If Brock Purdy were to play this week against Arizona, have only allowed 2 quarterbacks to score more than 18.1 fantasy points. Bryce Young with 55 pass attempts, Daniel Jones with a rushing touchdown. Arizona's been a brutal matchup. However, they are pretty injured. They weren't really tested last week. So if Brock Purdy plays, or if he doesn't, Mac Jones, where do the Niners quarterbacks, Jamie, rank amongst Brissett, Tua, Mariota, and Rodgers, I guess?
I put Purdy where I have Mac Jones ranked, which would be behind all of these guys. Purdy would probably go ahead of Tua at best. I would still start Jacoby Brissett ahead of him.
All right.
Me too.
And why isn't Geno Smith higher? Like earlier this year, he scored 32 points against Washington. He scored 34 against Jacksonville. Dallas has been on that level. So why are we not quite as confident in Geno?
So 3 reasons. 1, Geno's still on the injury report for what that's worth, dealing with a quad injury. So got to keep that in mind. 2, as Dave alluded to, the addition of Quinnen Williams is going to make things a little bit more uncomfortable for all quarterbacks against the Cowboys, but especially ones that struggle. And I think you got to put Geno in the category of guys that struggle. And 3, this is a pretty good week for quarterbacks off the waiver wire. So Brissett, I like his matchup just as much, and he's playing better. Tua's matchup is just as good, potentially better now because of what the Commanders lost. Remember, they're down Daron Payne as well. Not going to make the trip to Madrid. And then you have Mariota, who's been playing very well as well. So I think just in the case of Geno, he's a great fallback option, but there's a big but, still Geno Smith.
Number 4 for Geno, and I mentioned this before, it's Quinnen Williams against backup guards potentially in that game. That pocket is going to collapse.
Davis Mills,
That's to Geno's credit. He's played 6 games with Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers. He combined the best tight end and one of the best quarterbacks. That's what you get. Brock Bowers, and he's been 19.5 fantasy points or more in 3 of those, and we know that Bowers wasn't 100% in a couple of those games.
The Texans quarterbacks are also interesting this week, whoever it may be. Tennessee, the last 3 quarterbacks against Tennessee, Drake May, 27 points, Daniel Jones, 29, Justin Herbert, 32. So could be a good matchup there. You got
an interesting stat, if you want to call it stat. Davis Mills was rostered in 6% of leagues and started in 5.
Yeah, right. Why roster him if you're not going to start him?
Yep.
Russell, I thought you were going to say something like that Stroud had a higher star percentage or something, but I remember the London game where Jaylen Warren was ruled out early that morning, and Kenneth Gainwell. Jalen Warren had a higher start percentage than Kenneth Gainwell was rostered. Then Kenneth Gainwell
West Coast. They didn't wake up.
I know. All right. Any interest, just real quick, guys, since we're running a little behind. Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy this week? Any interest in them?
McCarthy more than
Not
Penix,
really.
just based on matchup, but not much.
Agreed.
Running backs, I don't really think we have to get into it. There's Benson. He's the prize if available. Pacheco, he is the classic trap back. Doesn't catch passes and doesn't get the goal line work. And the next two matchups are Denver and Indianapolis isn't so bad, but Denver's not great. Not a great matchup. Tajay Spears, 4 straight games with 7 or more fantasy points. Amari DiMercado and Sean Tucker, we've talked about a lot. Devin Singletary, we kind of think he's more likely to get the goal line work than Tracy.
100%.
So, yeah.
And more involved in the passing game.
Yeah. So there's Singletary. Algier keeps scoring. I think
just a blanket statement, because there's a member of the Giants in every position category that we have to see what Mike Kafka's going to do, because he may go with Jameis, which changes everything. He may go with Russ, which changes everything. Jackson Dart may not play. If he does, changes everything. Like, there's just so many variables right now with what the Giants are dealing with. So just keep that in mind with Wilson or Jameis in 2 QB super flex leagues. Keep it in mind with Singletary. He may be, if Kafka comes out and says he's not going to say this, but Singletary is now the lead running back and Jameis is the starter, and Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson, that just changes everything for them. Theo Johnson across the board.
Yeah. Jameis won't steal rushes. He'll look downfield. He'll throw a little bit more. That's good for the receivers. It's better for Devin Singletary than if it's Jackson Dart. And if Russ starts, you're going to want to run away from everybody.
If we find out today that Jameis is the starter, Slayton is my favorite player to add at any position.
Of the guys who are available, of the guys who are not over like Kate Otten and not over the 70.
He's in that category. He's in that range.
Man.
Yeah, because look, this is a guy that has rest of season appeal here. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns that didn't count 2 weeks in a row, but we're seeing when Dart gets back, he's got a chemistry that, I see what you're saying here.
Well, it's not, I shouldn't say 2 touchdowns that didn't count. One he dropped. So
that's, yes, true. But chances for bigger games and 44% roster. We've been talking about it for a while. Unfortunately, it's not like an easy schedule. Green Bay obviously is very good, but you take your chances.
If it's Jameis, I don't care. Like, that's
I get where you're coming from, but Slayton is just underwhelmed so often. I think if you start him and you hope for 12 PPR points, like, that's the fair expectation, and that's what he gave you last week.
I don't disagree in a broad picture of what Darius Slayton has been, but in the times since he's sort of been the backup, when he's gotten a chance to be the starter, he's been better than expected.
Yeah. All right. So it's the wide receiver is Christian Watson, Darius Slayton, Dontavian Wicks in there as well, Parker Washington. Yeah, I mean, the Packers are pretty interesting here. And then there's Golden too, right? And also it's a chest injury for Romeo Doubs. I have no idea if he's going to be out. Yep. So a lot of moving parts there for the Packers, and they might just be kind of run heavy against the Giants. In fact, I think they're going to be pretty run heavy.
Probably. Yes, sir.
Parker Washington only had 7 targets, but Trevor Lawrence only threw 23 passes. That's an amazing target share for Parker Washington. Gets the Chargers, though. They are second best against wide receivers. Jaden Higgins, Jamie mentioned them. I said on Beyond the Box Score yesterday, I wasn't sure if they were getting the young guys more involved because Christian Kirk barely played. When you look at the snap counts for Higgins, for Knoll, for Kirk, say they got them a little bit more involved, but not quite enough.
It's still Nico and no one else. I don't mind stashing Higgins, and I'd rather have Higgins than Knoll as long as Kirk is healthy. But it's first of all, I think it's unlikely that Davis Mills keeps playing on a tear like this. He's not taking on Jacksonville again. And then it just feels like Nico. Yeah, there's that too. I feel like it's Nico and no one else. As far as the passing, as far as the receivers go.
Right. Okay, so Malik Washington was an interesting one by Jamie. We mentioned Calvin Austin as a sleeper. Matt Collins, the only thing I'll say about Matt Collins is with Booty out, he got those deep balls. and he's got the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. The accuracy for Drake May on his deep balls, the numbers are insane.
Yeah.
So there's that possibility. All right, one last guy. If you get a shootout between Buffalo and Tampa Bay, Keon Coleman's probably going to have a good game.
I thought about him, especially with Kincaid's injury, but it's just so tough to trust.
He got targeted deep last week every time he was in one-on-one coverage against Miami. Every time. And there were some ugly attempts, and then there was the touchdown, which was really good. So total grab bag. Tampa doesn't usually play a lot of man-to-man coverage, but if Josh Allen gets those opportunities, it's pretty clear he's going to go deep to Keon Coleman.
I mean, Allen's thrown more than 30 passes 3 times, and Coleman's had 7 or more targets in all 3 games. And he's had 2. He's had 1 great game against Baltimore. Last week was a good game at Miami. It wasn't great. And then he had he had 10 points against New England.
I also don't know if shootout means a lot of throwing for Josh Allen.
Yeah, 100%. Right. That's always the X factor. They could throw a high-scoring game. Allen could have 2 rushing touchdowns. Cook could have 20 carries for sure.
Yep.
All right, tight ends. So how would you rank Harold Fannin Jr., Kate Otten, Theo Johnson?
Comparatively to the guys to pick up?
No, just amongst themselves.
For me, it would go Otten, Fannin, Theo.
Same.
And Theo might move ahead of Fannin if it's Jameis.
And would you add Schultz over any of them, or are those 3 ahead of Schultz?
It would be Otten, Schultz, Fannin, Theo.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay. How would Juwan Johnson factor in? Like, do we need to keep Juwan Johnson?
Yes.
After his bye?
Yes.
After his bye?
Johnson's the second tight end to add for me this week. So it's very similar to Joe Burrow on clearly a much more sliding scale. But, if you're just looking to stash somebody, the consistency for him, fantasy point wise, has been fantastic. And now he's making more plays down the field. First game without Shaheed, he goes for 92 yards. So, at this point, it's Olave and Juwan Johnson. I know people were hoping to see maybe Devon Vele, and that could happen. And I don't think the run game is clearly going to be as successful as it was last week because it just hasn't been throughout the course of the season. So Shuck's going to be throwing. These are the 2 guys he's throwing to. Johnson's been he has 3 games this season with less than 10 PPR points.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Wow, that's great. And Shuck wasn't terrible.
Jamie likes Loveland 1 spot ahead of Njoku. Dave had Njoku. I am getting some cold feet on David Njoku.
Yeah.
Because he's not running that many routes. Oh my gosh, dude. I don't think we talked about Jerry Jeudy at all.
Good.
I feel like we completely skipped him. Do we like Jerry Jeudy coming off this big game?
I think it's worth taking a look at for 2 reasons. One, spike in targets. That was nice to see. Scored a touchdown. That was nice to see. For me, it's more the potential of a quarterback change, because if it's still Dylan Gabriel, I'm not going to have a lot of interest in Jerry Jeudy. I know, again, he did all this in this last game with Dylan Gabriel, excuse me. But I think Shadur Sanders will take some shots down the field, and Dylan Gabriel's just not doing that. And so, Jeudy with Tillman back, I don't know why that was the reason why he played better. But still, it's just one of those situations where there's a chance for Jeudy. And if you want to take that chance, I wouldn't put too much priority on it. Certainly wouldn't spend a lot of fab on it, but there's a maybe there, especially after a little bit of signs of life. And like you alluded to on Sunday, he's been dealing with drops across the entire season. Maybe that he catches a few more of those and the production looks a little bit better.
I'll be a hater on this one. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback. Neither of them are particularly great. I think Judy's big game in part was because they took on the Jets, and it was the Jets without Quinnen Williams, the Jets without Sauce Gardner. They threw a good amount for them, and Jeudy came through. This happens once in a while. They've got Baltimore next week. There's absolutely no way I would start Jerry Jeudy against the Ravens.
Some wide receivers are having some big games against the Ravens, and now they don't have Marlon Humphrey.
What about recently? Has it happened?
Well, yeah, Romo Dunze had a big game. Jalen Waddle had 6 for 82, and then they did great against Jefferson and Addison.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming off of a game where
Taylor had 124 yards and touchdown. The last thing on Jeudy, because I get it. This was coming off their bye week. So was it an intentional thing to let's get our best player basically going here? And yeah, he does have the most drops per game in the NFL, so he's hurt himself. It's interesting. Like Calvin Ridley or Jerry Jeudy, who would you rather take a shot on?
We named like 5 other wide receivers I'd rather have.
Yeah, I know, but just between those 2, who would you rather take a shot on?
Well, I don't know when Calvin Ridley's ever going to play again, so by default, it's Jeudy.
Okay, there you go.
I would go Jeudy.
All right. There's Loveland, who's getting you some consistent floor recently. Well, I guess just not just
Great matchup too.
Yeah, Minnesota's been struggling. 5 touchdowns to tight ends in their last 5 games. There's Njoku. There's Brenton Strange. Tyler Higbee with a great matchup. TJ Hawkinson with a great matchup. Chicago's been struggling.
Yeah, but he's 4 targets or less in every start with McCarthy. It's hard to trust.
Yeah. Dave mentioned Dawson Knox. What about Mason Taylor, guys, with New England giving up a decent amount of touchdowns to tight ends and no Garrett Wilson?
I'd rather have Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, it's just tough. Like there's an opportunity here for the Jets for someone to step up because again, Garrett Wilson's out 3 to 4 weeks. Like who could you possibly trust? Like maybe Adonai Mitchell starts to take something, get involved and does something. Maybe John Mechie, who played last week. Maybe it's Mason Taylor. Maybe it's Tyler Johnson. Maybe it's Alan Lazard. Maybe it's just somebody that's going to suck. And why bother?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the DSTs, not the best week for DSTs, but the Chiefs are Jamie's favorite to stream. They get the Broncos this week. Falcons have the Carolina Panthers. The Cowboys are at the Raiders. And the Dolphins get Washington. Tyler Loop at kicker, Harrison Butker, Andres Borregales, Zane Gonzalez. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We will talk to you tomorrow with our trade episode of Fantasy Football Today. And just confirming we are live. We did record this, so we are done. Talk to you tomorrow.
I'm out.